He's now Speaker of the House and one of the most powerful politicians in the country.
The challenge before us is great, but the time for action is now, and I will not let you down.
How this hard-right congressman came out on top and what his ascendancy says about the GOP now. I'm Meghna Chakrabarty. That's on the next On Point.
Every weekday at 7 p.m. on Radio IQ. Support for Radio IQ comes in part from the Mirius Group, a private wealth advisory practice of Ameriprise Financial Services, LLC. Providing investment and planning services for over 50 years. The Mirius Group at AmeripriseAdvisors.com. And from the Nature Conservancy, for nearly 70 years protecting Virginia's lands and waters, including Virginia's Pinelands and Bottom Creek Gorge Preserve. Learn more at nature.org/Virginia.
A 4-mile backup remains in place on I-81 North, just north of Harrisonburg, after a vehicle fire early this morning. The southbound 257 entrance ramp is blocked in that spot as well. Meanwhile, let's hang up just to the east of Charlottesville, I-64 West, a mile marker 129, a multi-vehicle wreck. The west, left shoulder, and left lane are closed there at that spot in Albemarle County.
Is the Google Play Store unfair to players?
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Amazon Business, helping provide a smarter, easier way to get the supplies businesses need to thrive. Amazon Business, your partner for smart business buying. And by Fidelity, a dedicated Fidelity advisor can help create a wealth plan for a full financial picture. Investment minimums apply. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC.
I'm David Brancaccio in New York. What can we learn about money markets and business from the huge video game industry? We call our project here Skin in the Game. Today, a lesson from the headlines on antitrust. A civil trial is set to start today pitting video game maker Epic against Google. A jury in San Francisco will decide whether Google's App Store uses monopoly power to unfairly drive up prices for app developers and game players.
If this case sounds familiar, it's because Epic sued Apple over similar claims. The video game maker says both the iOS and Android mobile operating systems coerce users of Epic's popular Fortnite game to make in-app purchases through Apple's and Google's payment system, ensuring the tech giants get a cut of revenues. Epic wants to be able to include an alternative payment method that bypasses Apple's and Google's transaction fees. For the most part, Epic lost its battle against Apple, and both sides are appealing. Now it's Google's turn, and ahead of the trial, the company agreed to settle with other plaintiffs who were involved. 50 states, the District of Columbia, and Puerto Rico, as well as Match Group, the operator of dating apps. Google agreed to pay Match $40 million and give it access to its so-called user choice billing system announced last year. Through that system, Google charges a lower service fee. Epic has dismissed that option, saying it still allows Google to tax transactions. I'm Nova Safo for Marketplace.
The House of Representatives is expected to vote on its transportation funding bill this week. That vote was postponed last week after protests. It cuts too much money from Amtrak.
The legislation would fund the Departments of Transportation, Housing, and Urban Development. It's one of 12 funding bills Congress needs to pass and the president needs to sign to fund the federal government each year. But the House version of the bill would cut Amtrak funding by about $1 billion. It would claw back funding from infrastructure legislation Congress passed and President Biden signed in 2021. The White House says the proposed cuts would force Amtrak to reduce most of its long-distance rail service, run fewer trains along the popular Northeast Corridor, and scale back or postpone almost 400 capital projects. In September, a group of House Republicans signed on to a letter to then House Speaker Kevin McCarthy protesting the cuts to Amtrak. The letter says Amtrak needs to be fully funded so it can rebuild bridges and tunnels, invest in stations and route improvements, and replace aging trains. As is, the House bill is unlikely to pass the Senate, and even if it did, it would be vetoed by President Biden. I'm Nancy Marshall-Genzer for Marketplace.
I can see S&P and NASDAQ futures are each up 0.2%. And during this time of year for picking benefits during open enrollment at work, we look at menopause benefits. It's streamable from our homepage if you miss our story on the air today.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Odoo, provider of an all-in-one management platform with a suite of fully integrated applications designed to simplify and connect every aspect of business in one software. More at odoo.com. And by Schwab. Schwab offers investors choices like full-service wealth management, self-directed investing options, and trading on Thinkorswim. More at schwab.com. And by C3 AI. C3 Generative AI provides ChatGPT enterprise search that is verifiable, secure, and accurate across all enterprise data. C3.ai. This is enterprise AI.
It happened going into October. The U.S. drove off what some call the child care cliff, the deadline for child care providers to spend $37 billion in federal pandemic-era subsidies. Now that the money is done, there's a forecast that tens of thousands of child care programs will close. Here's Marketplace's Stephanie Hughes.
It's lunchtime at downtown Baltimore Child Care, and the preschoolers are getting ready for a race.
I'm gonna race.
Oh, you want to have a milk race with me?
To see who can drink their milk first.
Let's go for it.
The kids and teacher Ebony Goins all down their cups.
My bones are now strong.
Goins is one of 85 teachers here. The organization prides itself on having one teacher for every 7 preschoolers. That allows for fun activities like that milk race. Downtown Baltimore Child Care received just over $1 million in federal pandemic relief funds. Some of that bought gloves and bleach, but the vast majority went towards paying those teachers.
It was very important for us to keep all of our employees in jobs and in health benefits.
Executive Director Hillary Roberts King says now that the federal money is gone, she's fundraising and applying for grants. She's also keeping an eye on costs, putting off replacing the windows, for instance, and giving smaller raises than she would have liked.
This past year, we had to do 4% for people who make less and 2% for people who make more, and it wasn't great news.
The employees here make at least $15 an hour, which is more than $1 over the median wage for child care workers across the country. Still, Roberts King says having less money to pay employees affects her ability to hire. It also affects current staff members.
You know, it's just the pay in this career is not enough.
Tiffany Thornton is a teacher with downtown Baltimore Child Care. She loves the work, but says she still has to supplement her income.
I've been here 20 years and I still do side jobs. Like I babysit on the side. I do Instacart on the side.
Thornton has held off having kids of her own. She's worried she wouldn't be able to afford it. She's 39.
You know, I don't have a lot of time to figure that out. You know, I'm getting older, but no, I don't have kids. And that's one of the reasons why childcare is expensive. The pay doesn't match, the economy right now.
Must be daylight saving. The Roanoke City Council session for November the 6th, 2023 is hereby called to order. Let me Let me ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Mr. Pretty will be absent this morning. Vice Mayor Cobb is absent. Ms. White Boyd.
Here.
Mr. Volleson.
Here.
Ms. Moon Reynolds.
Here.
Ms. Sanchez Jones.
Here.
And Mayor Lee.
Here, and quorum is present. Let me just make a notice that council meetings will be televised live and replayed on RVTV Channel 3 on Thursdays at 7 o'clock p.m. and Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 5 o'clock p.m. and video streamed through Facebook Live at facebook.com/Roanoke VA. Council meetings are offered with closed captioning for the deaf or hard of hearing. All right. I'm pleased to recognize our Redevelopment and Housing Authority here today to be with us, and thank you all for coming out and being a part of this. And we look forward to our conversations. And David, we appreciate you and the work that's being done at the Housing Authority and all of the commissioners. And we're going to have just a conversation this morning. And I'm pleased at this time to recognize Ms. Karen Connor, the chair, and for any comments or opening remarks that you'd like to make.
Okay, well, good morning, council members. We are very pleased to be here today, and we'd like to tell you a little bit about the great contributions that staff have made during this past year in meeting RRHA's mission. First of all, though, I'd like to remind you what our mission is. It's to take a leadership role in affordable housing and self-sufficiency programs while investing in the community. As you know, we have a very important mission in the community, and so I'd like to take a few minutes to highlight some of the noteworthy activities that have furthered our mission this year. You might know that RRHA is currently providing housing assistance to more than 5,200 families in the public housing and housing choice voucher programs. We currently own and manage approximately 1,282 units of public housing and administer approximately 2,067 units of Section 8 housing choice vouchers. We also own and operate 24 units of housing that are supported with Section 8 vouchers. And in addition, we manage 119 units of rental housing that are a part of the Low-Income Housing Tax Credit Program. A lease purchase homeownership program is helping many low to moderate income individuals and families realize the dream of home ownership. We also partner with many community organizations providing programs and assistance. We currently are working with 142 individuals through our Family Self-Sufficiency Program. You may have heard it as the FSS program. The program assists residents with meeting long-term career goals by working closely with community partners. The program provides residents with an incentive to escrow funds based on earned income and achieving their long-term goal. We currently have 58 individuals that are escrowing funds each month with a total escrow balance of $173,442.09. The escrow can be used to make a down payment on a house, buy a car, or for other items that help them meet their long-term career goals. The Campaign for Grade Level Reading announced its 2023 Public Housing Community Honor Roll, all of whom employ strategies and tactics that leverage public housing agencies and other organizations' resources to advance seamless systems of coordinated and aligned care, services, and family supports that are 24/7, 365, and multi-generational. RRHA was honored to be one of only 31 public housing agencies and organizations out of 3,300 housing agencies nationally that was given the distinguished title of the Campaign for Grade Level Reading Honor Roll member. RRHA was also honored with a National Association of Housing and Redevelopment Officials Award of Merit in the category for Innovation in Resident and Client Services. We were awarded that based on the innovative ways that we help provide mental health services being offered directly at 3 of our 4 public housing locations. In partnership with Feeding Southwest Virginia, RRHA participated in the summer lunch program that served 4 out of the public housing sites and distributed more than 2,000 free summer lunches to RRHA residents 18 and younger. The purpose of the City of Roanoke RRHA Jobs Plus program is to develop locally based, job-driven approaches to increase earnings and advance employment outcomes through work readiness, employer connections, job placement, educational advancement, technology skills, and financial literacy for residents at Jamestown Place, Indian Rock Village, and scattered sites. The Jobs Plus program at Jamestown, Indian Rock Village, and scatter sites currently have 95 individuals enrolled and actively participating in the program. The current amount of Jobs Plus earned income disregard for these individuals is $84,633 for the current year. The Roanoke Envision Center currently houses community partners including Humankind, Family Services of Roanoke Valley, and Virginia Western Community College. The Envision Center provides easy access for residents to services that provide mental wellness, financial wellness, education and training opportunities, and much more. And as of the current year, the Envision Center has served more than 640 individuals. According to crime analysis, the crime rates at Lansdowne and Lincoln have decreased since RRHA installed the tsunami cameras. Cameras are currently being installed at Hunt and Bluestone, and RRHA also has a very strong relationship with the Roanoke City Police Department. In addition to all of what I've just shared, we also had an independent public audit for the year ending September 30th of 22. There were no findings, and this is the 15th consecutive annual audit that had no findings. We are also looking at public housing repositioning. Repositioning is the conversion of public housing to either a public-private partnership or full housing authority ownership, and it's supported by Section 8 subsidies and/or private financing. Through repositioning, RRHA evaluates what regulatory platform is best suited for the PHA to meet the long-term affordable housing challenges in the specific community, considering the needs of the residents, the condition of the real estate portfolio, and the objectives of the PHA and other community leaders. There are 4 main reasons PHAs seek to reposition their public housing. First one is local control and flexibility to meet local needs. Repositioning leads to more local control over the use of a PHA's public housing assets to reconfigure and finance as needed. The second reason is administrative relief. Converting public housing to a Section 8 program, for example, housing choice vouchers, project-based vouchers, or project-based rental assistance, can also offer significant regulatory and administrative relief. The third reason is predictable and stable funding platform. Historically, Section 8 programs have offered a more reliable and constant funding stream than the traditional public housing program. In some instances, conversion to Section 8 can also result in increased funding. The fourth reason is to have the ability to leverage equity. In conversions, HUD allows PHAs to raise private equity to finance strategic goals, from addressing capital needs and building long-term reserves necessary for preservation-oriented life cycle improvements to constructing or acquiring new housing. I'd also just like to take a minute or two to talk about the Cherry Hill Gainsborough next steps. The Cherry Hill properties owned by RRHA are made up of 77 parcels along Orange Avenue Northwest and Cherry Avenue. The area spans an almost contiguous 3.5 city blocks bound by 5th Street to the west and Gainsborough Road to the east, and the southernmost property lines of the parcels on Cherry Avenue. RRHA does not own all of the properties within this 3.5 blocks. There's one small property on Orange Avenue, 2 on Cherry Avenue, including the Big Dan apartment building, and the 2 Gainsborough YMCA properties at Gainsborough Road and Orange Avenue. These properties were acquired at various times as part of the Gainsborough redevelopment plan. RRHA is currently looking for a developer to build affordable housing on that site because it's highly unlikely that RRHA would get HUD approval for building housing in that census tract because of fair housing issues. RRHA is also currently in the process of developing 2 new public housing units on Bluestone Avenue in the middle of Bluestone Park. One of the units will be wheelchair accessible, yay, and the other will be built universally designed, another good move as far as we're concerned. And those will allow flexibility in future accessibility accommodations if needed. Construction work is already underway at the site. Since 2015, RRHA has developed 28 new public housing units, including the 2 noted above. And while this number is not really significant, it is noteworthy because public housing authorities across the country have by and large ceased the development of new public housing units, and the number of units has decreased nationwide in the 21st century. The last property I want to talk about is the Old Spanish Trail Ashton Hill property. We are in the process of acquiring the site from Virginia Housing. The former Ashton Hill properties on Old Spanish Trail at Peters Creek Road and Shenandoah Avenue is almost 13 acres of vacant land zoned for multifamily housing development. RRHA intends to develop the site with at least 2 phases of affordable housing units. During the first phase, we plan to build 86 units, and the development will be dependent upon the receipt of low-income housing tax credits, with the first application for such no sooner than March of 2025. We also anticipate that we're going to need additional funding for this project, and so we will be looking to City Council to approve a funding request that we will bring to you at a later date. I would now like to turn the podium over to RRHA's Executive Director, David Bustamante.
Ms. Garner, thank you for your report. Let me go back and ask Mr. Bustamante to call the roll, make all this legal.
Okay. Commissioner Anguiano? Commissioner Walker? Commissioner Garner? Commissioner Kepley? Chair Carney? Vice Chair Spickler? Commissioner Smith?
Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you for having us here today to discuss how our partnerships are helping the communities that we serve. Before I get started, I just want to talk a little bit about the affordable housing crisis. And that word affordable has different meanings to different people, different developers. For us, affordable means 30% and below AMI. And it's very difficult to find housing within the city that meets that criteria. Yes, we applaud the City Council's commitment to development. I've heard and seen that various developments have been built. But the definition of affordable doesn't necessarily serve the hardest of the hardest to serve, which is the largest population that is looking for housing at this time. Having said that, the lack of affordable housing has caused a lot of things to happen. As you all know, we opened our wait list in 2022 for the Housing Choice Voucher, and that wait list usually averages 2,500 individuals or applicants. We obtained 4,600 applications this year. Our public housing wait lists are full. We open them, and where we averaged, 30, 40 applications per bedroom size, we're getting 100, 120. And what that has caused is that in order for us to have been able to begin the assessment and eligibility of these 4,600 applicants on the 22 wait list, we had to exhaust the wait list for 2019, which probably had 300 applicants on it. It usually takes an applicant in the city within 30 to 60 days to find a rental unit. Now, every applicant that goes out and looks for a unit, it's averaging 120 days. And sometimes they're coming back and saying, I just can't find a place to live. And unfortunately, we're working with them, but at some point, these individuals lose their voucher because they only have a 120-day limit. So it's caused a lot of, I would say, hardships for individuals that really are just looking for a place to live. So I don't want to skip around, but when we decided to purchase this land, Spanish Trail, we understand that we're trying to build 86 units, and as our chair mentioned earlier, we've built close to 28 public housing units in the last 5 years. It doesn't seem as a lot, but it always seems as though we have to do more than what we're doing now. I mean, because these individuals are coming to us and they're saying, we need a place to live, and that is part of our mission. So we're trying the best that we can to get in front of the chain or in front of the ball and develop these units of public housing or RAD or Section 8. But it's when you hear that we're not going to be able to do a tax credit application until 2025, and as you all know, any development, unfortunately, even though you have the developers and you have the financing, it takes a long period of time. What I'm trying to say is that during that long period of time, the situation that we have is not getting better, it's getting worse. More people are looking for places to live. We get walk-ins, phone calls, emails, and it's really a crisis within our community at this point. So if we're doing the best that we can, but in reality, if this is not addressed eventually, if they don't have a unit to live, then it directly impacts other programs within the city, the shelters, DSS. So it's something that we really need to work together to try to alleviate the situation, because it's not getting any better. Having said that, I've received questions from all of the commissioners and the mayor, councilman, and the mayor, and I'm going to go over and try to answer these questions, unless there's any questions from the council or the mayor at this time.
I don't think so at this time. No, sir.
Okay. The first question is, do the housing commissioners visit the housing developments from time to time? I would say that they do, but I will open it up to the commissioners to answer that question themselves.
Well, I was going to say I can only talk for myself, but I do know that, I make time to go ahead and drive throughout the housing just to get a feel for what it looks like, what things I might see. I drove through 3 or 4 of them just a few weeks ago, and there was trash that needed to be picked up, and there was some grass that needed to be cut and bushes that needed to be trimmed. But I also recognize that, we are having, just like everybody else, we're having a very hard time filling the positions that we have open right now. So I know a part of it is that, but I'm sure once those positions are filled, the properties, the trash will be picked up and the maintenance will occur on a regular basis. And I don't know about anybody else.
I was just going to say, so David and staff regularly hold listening sessions with residents, and the commissioners are invited to participate in those and attend. So that's always a valuable opportunity to hear what people's day-to-day experiences are and what the needs are, because that's what people come there to express, what they're looking for in the facility. And I think the other thing, unfortunately, Dwayne's not here, but Commissioner Smith has been the head of the resident council, and so he's always provided really valuable insight, not just into what the needs are, but what residents are saying about ongoing projects, and giving us the ability to be more proactive in addressing concerns.
I can also only speak for myself, but I have visited, I've had 2 site visits in the last year, I think 3 total since my time on the board in September of 2022. And during those times, I held an event with the residents, so that way I could not only be there on site, but also talk to residents and hear from them and hear their concerns, or also compliments, which are also obviously nice to hear.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I would just want to say thank you all for coming and thank you for being here. We really appreciate you all coming to share with us your updates and some of your concerns. The question that I get often is about the visits and the condition of some of the units. So I'm wondering how that's being addressed and whether or not it's valid. It may or may not be valid, but we do, I think I know for me and some of the other members of council get inquiries all the time about the state of some of the units, that needs to be updated. And it might be related to what Ms. Carney just said, that, you don't have the staff to do the maintenance. But I'm not talking about small repairs. I'm talking about some of the units that might need to be just renovated. And I don't know if you have the money to do that, but do you check on those? Or, visiting a few times, I guess that is helpful, but does someone just go through all of the units periodically to see what kind of condition that they're in?
Yes, we do. The property manager's responsibility is to do that on a monthly basis. Either themselves or the assistant managers walk through the units, mostly to determine whether or not there are any issues within the units, but at the same time, if there's something that needs to be done in the unit, then they report that back to us. And if we need to place the unit on modernization status, then we do that. And we remove the tenant from that unit and either place them in a hotel until we could fix the issues within the unit and or transfer them to another public housing development.
Mr. Bustamante, do you have a lot of them that are in that state of modernization?
We have, I believe, Joel, we have about 30 units. And that encompasses all 8 of our developments.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Let me ask the commissioners, we get calls on everything, on anything. And so, people living in the apartments that shouldn't be there, do you all have a check? Is that what the resident managers do, or how does that work? How do you find out about those kinds of things?
I could answer that. That is an issue that we have, and when it's reported either by a neighbor or if we see, for example, if we see that there's a lot of traffic within one unit, then we bring the tenant in and we speak to the tenant. It's a little bit hard, Mayor, to prove that from time to time. They are allowed to have visitors, but they cannot have somebody staying there for longer than 14 days without coming to the housing authority and asking for that person, for permission to have that person stay within the unit. So, yes, that occurs from time to time, and it's more of a bigger issue when it comes to the housing choice voucher, because since the units are so spread out, it's very difficult for us to manage that. And in the housing choice voucher section, we're not a party to the lease. It's between the landlord and the tenant. So if the landlord informs us, hey, I went to the unit and I saw 3 or 4 individuals in there that are not on the lease, then we bring the tenant in and we talk to them. But if you know, it takes a lot more than, you know, we get calls in anonymously saying, you need to check this unit. And we, you know, call the person in and we investigate. But yes, that is an issue throughout public housing and the HCV program.
Well, let me just say, and I'll get to you. Let me just say that one of the reasons we want to meet with you, it's been a while since we met. I get a lot of calls from certain things, especially as it relates to violence, gun violence. They see people taking guns. As a matter of fact, one of the newspaper articles said that one of the housing areas was a storehouse where people take guns and store them. And, you know, that's kind of mind-boggling in terms of that, and the media reported that. So we want to bring you all here to talk about those kinds of things because it's important. And David, I will see you from time to time, but I want to get the commissioner's thoughts on some of these things and to dispel, hopefully, what we hear. But we hear a lot of things on situations, and then the newspaper reports that things are happening there. So, and I understand the difficulties and the challenges you face. But we want to make sure, and I personally want to make sure people feel safe. They're safe there. And so that's why most of my questions are lined up to say who's checking who. And I'm an old corrections guy, and if I want to find out what John or somebody's doing, I won't go by doing the normal business hours. I sometimes take a knock on the door in the evening hours or hours that you suspect some things, but that's all we want to do, one of the things we want to do, and have a very candid conversation. And so please feel free to share your thoughts and things as we go forward. That's important. And now, Peter?
I just wanted to follow up with the, you guys are going through these units every month. What is it, if you go through a unit and you find that there is a maintenance request or there's something that needs to be fixed, what's the time that it normally takes? What's the average time to fix a maintenance request?
If it's an emergency, 24 hours, meaning if the front door doesn't lock, if there's a leak, if there's something that would prevent them from living in that unit safely, it's a 24-hour.
Okay.
If it's a regular, you know, we need to replace a globe on a light that was cracked or something to that extent, it might take 10 to 30 days to get that repaired.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
I like the idea. Coming,
Okay,
let me
that's
just follow up on something. I like the idea that, well, the statement that Ms. Connie made with regards to cameras. And I don't want the bad guys to know what we're doing, so I may want to limit how much we talk about this, because you know that's always important. Again, I'm criminal justice minded, and you want to make sure they know that. But I think that's a good thing, and I hope people recognize that you know you're on camera when you do certain things. I think that's excellent. I've been wanting to do that here in our city on certain hot spots, and some of the places here. You all have some hot spots, whether you admit it, they're hot spots because those are things that come up. But I think that I really appreciate the camera part, and I look forward to you all working with our new police chief, and I'm sure he'll be meeting and consulting and talking with you all as we go forward.
And we have invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in security cameras.
Great.
Because we recognize that is part of the solution in making people feel that this is a safe space.
Good.
It's not the only solution. David's worked well, I think. increased policing, and we're constantly doing site reviews to sort of identify spots. But it is, we know security is priority both for our residents and for the community.
And if I may, the drug prevention, not drug prevention, gun prevention task force, gun violence prevention task force, awarded us a grant recently for 5 new cameras, which will be installed this Friday. We got 2 additional cameras at Lansdowne Park. We're going to install 2 additional cameras at Lincoln Terrace and 1 additional camera at Jamestown. So we're very appreciative of that. And while the cameras, we would like to think that they're a deterrent, they cannot stop somebody from, unfortunately, opening fire at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. I mean, we might be able to catch them and identify them, but just the mentality that it's okay to settle every disagreement with shooting somebody is something beyond what our cameras can do.
Right.
And it's a very, it's a very difficult thing to try to combat. But, we have very good relationship with the police department. They have 24-hour access to our cameras. And if there's something that they need or they need information, they come by and they talk to us or they talk to me and we provide them that information. I do have a phone call in to the new police chief to meet with him as well. So we're trying to do the best that we can, but the issue of, or the mentality that it's okay to just shoot people.
Right.
It's a people issue. It's not really it's beyond what I believe that can be resolved with some cameras.
Well, I understand your position, and believe me, it's a criminal justice issue too, in terms of the mentality. And I think we're improving that with the apprehension. But when it leaves the police department and goes down to other areas in the criminal justice system, we don't have any control. We feel frustrated like you do, but we recognize that that mentality is something that we've been struggling with and we're working with now. But we want to apprehend them, and I've always been an advocate of, once we do, that they're to be sentenced to the fullest extent of the law. But as you know, we can't go but so far on that, and neither can you. That's up to the courthouse and the Commonwealth and the judges. But I think that's going to improve in terms of the apprehension, and I've already seen some improvement in that, and then sentencing. So I understand what you're saying, and but we've got to do what we can do, and that's what cameras, and that's what we're trying to do is to do all we can to have that. But I'd write a book if I could get into the mind of people who could, why they're doing this at 12 o'clock on the day out in front. And my hope and prayer is that nobody gets hit with a gun or bullet that has nothing to do with issues. That's a concern I have, especially in a housing area. Bullets go anywhere. They don't have a name on them, and that's the thing that keeps me up at night, among many. But thank you.
If I could go back for a second to go over some things you said about regarding the being safe in public housing. I would say very large majority of individuals who live in public housing are decent citizens. I mean, they really take care of their units. They're trying to do the best that they can. Unfortunately, as is everywhere else, there are situations where there is some element that is not supposed to be there that is there. And most of the time, that element is not necessarily individuals that are on the lease. It's individuals that are coming from the outside to these developments. So we're working very hard with the residents to try to get them to talk to us about things like, I'm seeing that there's a lot of activity in this unit, or I'm seeing guns, or I'm seeing things that make me feel frightened. Unfortunately, that hasn't been as easy as you would think it would be. You know, there was a shooting, as I'm sure all of you are aware of, at Hunt Manor last Friday. And when I went over there to talk to the police, you know, they found out what occurred by speaking to those individuals that were in the hospital. But the individuals that lived right next to them had no idea. They didn't see anything, they didn't hear anything. And that's a problem, right? Because they live in that community. So you would want them to feel safe in saying, hey, this is what I saw, and this is what I'm seeing. I need your help to be able to resolve this issue. But unfortunately, that communication, and it might be that they're afraid to say something because of retaliation or some other type of situation, but that would alleviate, in the sense it would make us aware so that we can make the police aware. So if we do not know until after the fact, it sort of makes it difficult for us to do anything about it.
All right, thank you. Ms. Bruno.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you all. And as you know, I am the liaison to the Housing Authority, so I appreciate you all coming. I did have a couple of questions, and I think the vice chair and the chair spoke on this about the canvassing, but I just think, I don't know, which ones did you go to, the vice chair? You mentioned a couple.
Predominantly, I've been to Melrose Towers a couple of times, particularly because they have kind of a wide variety of events, and because the residents live right there, it's more accessible to them. They can come right downstairs, so they have a pretty positive turnout for events. So that's just where I found I'm able to talk to the most people at one time.
Yeah, and the chair, which ones did you by chance go to? I think you mentioned one, I thought I heard.
Yeah, the properties that are off of Williamson, I went to 3 or 4 of them right in that area. The other thing that I know has been mentioned is that occasionally we do these walkthroughs where, and quite honestly, I was waiting for the weather to cool, you know, in order to do that. So that's something else that I am planning to do, is I think that's another way to hear from the residents.
Yes, I do think the canvassing would be beneficial for all the commissioners, especially, quote, the hot spots. You know, I believe if you did regular visits, alternated in regular visits and talking with the residents, similar to community policing, if you went to the hunt, I call them hunts, the Lincoln Terrace, to Bluestone, to Jamestown, you're right at Lansdowne, so, you know, I don't know how many of you go through Lansdowne. I believe the trust would build if they saw you on a regular basis than just showing up and asking questions because they don't know you. But if they got to know you, I think the trust factor would increase, and then you may be able to get a little more information. And plus, showing up and being where they're at, I believe you could probably decrease the crime too, because they would come forward quicker and let you know what they're hearing that's going to occur before it occurs. And also, I don't know if this is possible, if you're doing it, teaming up with the reset team when they come to your to the complexes, the commissioners going out with the reset team. I think that may help as well, because they are in the complexes. So then the people will be also seeing you, and they'll get to know who you are, and feel a little bit more comfortable in speaking with you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Oh, and last, do you meet on a regular basis? You may have answered with the site managers. And is there one at each property?
I meet with them daily.
Oh, okay. So is there one on at each site?
There's one on each side, and there's also an assistant at each side except for Lincoln.
Okay.
The assistant site manager at Lincoln just moved on to another position somewhere else.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
So I just want to say, at one time, I was presenting Shaping Our Community to like Lansdowne and whoever wanted to come. But that somehow stopped. I won't go into that, but I know people were coming and they were really excited. One community, one voice in Lynchburg he's a pastor, gave me a lot of items, new bikes, new shoes, new clothes, coats, tags, and he gave me all that stuff, and I did an event, and the people were coming out, and they were really excited, but that had to stop for some reason. And I would say that they were really not just coming for the items per se, but just reaching out to them, letting them know that just because you live in a situation or you're in a particular situation right now, it doesn't mean you have to stay there. They were really receptive to it. Again, I had to stop doing it. I don't know why. But even with the events that the Envision Center does, Greg, I was there participating and outreaching with them. He asked me to come back and start doing it again. I don't know if I will or not. But yeah, I think if we do more outreaching with them and let them see that there needs to be a change, and we're going to make sure it's going to be a change. The thing people want is somebody to really know that they really care.
Yes.
And they are concerned. And I think by the time that happens and you stir all that up, it'll cause a change, when they see people involved. And pretty much I love doing that. That's what I do. And that's what I intend to do, whether it be there or somewhere else. Wherever I go, I tend to reach out to people, no matter what age. The littlest of the littlest, the oldest of the oldest. All people want to know is feel like that you're concerned about them, that somebody cares.
Ms. Walker, I went to a couple of your events. I didn't realize they had stopped, so I'm sorry to hear that, because the two that I did attend, they were very well attended. So you think you might be starting that again? Was there you don't know why?
If I found a location, yes. If I found a location.
So you can't do it where you were doing it, where you were hosting it?
No, not right now.
Is there a particular reason or somebody
I don't know.
Is there somebody I should talk to, or maybe we can talk to find out? Because it was very well attended.
It was, and they were coming not just from Lansdowne, but they were coming from everywhere. I had a lady that caught the bus, and her daughter, she heard me in the office of Roanoke Redevelopment. I was sitting there, and she heard me, and I didn't know she was paying attention, but she caught the bus, her and her daughter from Southwest. And she said, when the event was almost over, she said, well, we got to go. We got to catch the bus. I said, no, ma'am. We will get you and your daughter a ride home. So hopefully this can start back up. I know I have access to Merrill's Library to do some things. I'm doing an event tomorrow, reaching out. It's a crochet event. They want me to come and do that. So I'm going to do that. My thing is just to reach out more, and that's what myself, and I really want to do. But as a team, it would be so much better to do that.
Well, I'll talk to Ms. Moon Reynolds to see if maybe there's something that can be done. Since it's so close to Lansdowne, maybe you and I can talk about that. Because I know, Ms. Spickler, you were doing events too, and you said you've done a few, so that sort of thing. So I'll chat with you offline. Okay.
Well, I attended some of these events, well, a couple of them. I was really impressed with the bicycles. The minister from Lynchburg came over. But just to follow up on something that David mentioned, and that's what we want to do, to let the residents know that we are concerned. That's why I come over. I didn't know what I was, just coming there, but it was a very real interest in that. And I think it's time, as we as council members can get out and support those things, because it's important that the residents know that we care about them, not just people that live in certain sections or our city, but to let them know. And that's why I think we wanted to get there, and I think that's a good thing, and to follow up to make sure that people are aware and know that we care, and that's important. And so, but thank you all for what you do, because that's really important, and we want to help in any way we can and have a better presence over there, just to say, hey, we care, we're here. All right, Ms. Vivian Sanchez Jones.
Well, I just want to thank you for holding events and doing the drive-through to the Lansdowne, to the housing development. But it would be really neat if you were to go inside the homes and see them. I get to spend a lot of time doing home visits out in Lansdowne and Hunt. And last year, Mr. Rollison and I had a chance to walk the neighborhoods and talk to the people. And it's nothing like going inside their homes and really seeing what's going on inside. So maybe you could find a partner. I will even go with you if you tell me what day you're going, because I know a lot of people there. I will go with you, but it will be different if you see how they live and see their complaints face to face. So thank you.
All right, I'm gonna let Mr. Budamante go ahead with the questions and things that he wants, feel that he needs to. I think some of them have been addressed now, but,
Yes. How long is the current wait list, and are there any exceptions for priorities? The wait time for the HCB program is probably the longest that we're going to have, just based on the lack of affordable rental units. On our public housing side, it depends on the bedroom size. Usually 1 and 2 bedrooms, the wait list is longer than for 3, 4s, and 5s. But we move through them, I'm not going to say quickly, but relatively quickly compared to the HCB program wait list. Do we have priorities? I'm assuming that means exceptions or preferences, so we do. We have preferences for individual families that are paying more than 40% of their income for rent. We also have preferences for elderly or disabled individuals. We have preferences for victims of domestic violence, and we also have preferences for individuals that are homeless or facing homelessness.
Mayor, may I ask a question?
yes, sir, Ms. Wilson.
So I assume those are the housing first type vouchers where we have somebody that's been in the HAT team and needs to find a place to live. So those folks are having a preference over those that have been waiting on the wait list and things like that, correct?
Yes, and we also have a program called the Emergency Housing Voucher Program. That was something that was awarded to us by HUD. And those referrals for housing or for the Section 8 voucher program come directly from the COC.
Okay.
I believe we received 26 vouchers, and we have 25 of them leased.
Okay. And then is there also a VA program?
We have a VASH program. Yes, we do. We have 136 VASH vouchers.
Okay.
And we work with the Salem VA to receive referrals from them.
Okay. Thank you.
Can felons qualify for housing? There are only 2 convictions that prohibit us from allowing individuals to move into any of our developments, and that would be lifetime registration as a sexual offender and the manufacture of meth on federal assisted property. Any other type of felony, it is the policy that we bring them in and review with them what have they done and how have they mitigated their circumstances.
Yeah, that was my question. So that is a case-by-case assessment on the type felony, the individual, the circumstances, so you evaluate all of that?
Yes.
So it is not automatic that they are not qualified for housing because they are convicted felons?
No, the only 2 that are mandatory are the lifetime, right.
The 2 you just mentioned?
Yes.
I'm glad I got back in time for that because I was very curious about that because we have a lot of folks with who are felons with children who are not able to find a place to live. So I was wondering if that was something we needed to talk to our U.S. legislatures about, changing that policy, but you're saying that that is not the case anymore?
No, it has to be done on a case-by-case basis to find out what have they done to rehabilitate themselves. If they bring that in and they say that they say, for example, they were convicted for some type of drug charge, and they come back and they say, well, I attended a recovery program, and here's, what I did when I was in prison. Usually those individuals are let into the program. So we have to talk to them, they have to talk to us, we have to figure out what they've done to better themselves, and most of the time they come with that information from the institution that they were in or what they did after being released, and if they bring us that information, they're allowed into the program.
So you wouldn't be doing that, though, Mr. Bustamante, your staff or somebody?
My staff, yes.
And I'm just trying to make sure that they have a process, so it's not, a way to like a metric or something, some kind of way to determine exactly what the felon was and, what the felony was and what they have done? So do they have like a checklist, or do they just have conversations, or are they trained to kind of get to the bottom of it?
We before anybody's admitted into the program, we run their background.
Uh-huh.
So we have a copy of their background, and then we bring the individual in, and we say, listen, this is what, most of the time, they write that down, that they do have a felony conviction, or they serve time in prison, and we bring them into the program. We bring them into the office, and we ask them about that conviction and what they could tell us about it.
Okay.
And if any of the staff ever have any questions, they usually come to me.
They come to you, okay.
Ms. Sanchez?
Mr. Bustamante, on immigration's parolee, are they having, has your office has more information on that?
We run a program called the SAFE program on everybody who's admitted into our program. And they identify for us who is eligible to be housed and who is not.
Okay, because I had a case, I worked with a lady, and she was denied because of the word parole. So we had to prove that it was an immigration term. So
Yeah,
that has been clear then?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
And if we try to do the best that we can, but if you run into a situation of that sort, you could always call me, and I will work with you or work with the resident, or that's a great opportunity for me to train my staff. If there was something that they did not do, then I could bring them in and I could train the staff on how this process should work.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I believe I've answered all the questions that were submitted to me. If there's any other questions that I might have not answered, or if there are any new questions, I'll be more than willing to answer them.
I just got, and you may have mentioned it, I've been following, but we get a call, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, a lot of calls on Melrose Towers. Is that managed in the same way that you do the other?
We have a property manager and an assistant property manager that are assigned to that property, and it's managed the same that the rest of our properties are managed.
We get a call, and from time to time, you see, because we're in the community, and you say, hey, and we know people that live in places, and it's just the comments are just not very positive as to where's Melrose Towers. I think it was a fire over there or something a few weeks back.
Mayor, I'm unaware that there was a fire there.
Okay, well,
there was a fire a couple of months back in the trash chute.
That may have been it.
Maybe that's what they're referring to. Yeah.
And that's when you get the response, well, what do you expect? It's Melrose Towers.
No.
And I'm saying, that's not what I want to hear, so I just want to just bring that to your attention.
Mayor, the issue with some of the things that happen after a fire is that, obviously our staff go in and they try to clean everything to the best of their ability, but then we have to contract some of that work out. We have to call Serpro. That's who we call for this particular case. And apparently they're very busy because they couldn't come in to the property for another 2 weeks. So the residents were very angry that certain things weren't cleaned professionally. And we tried to explain to them that we were getting somebody in to do that work, but, the work was done. It just wasn't done as quickly as it probably should have been done.
Okay. Well, let me just say, this is informal. These things, we got you here. We don't meet as a group that often, so things that come up and things that we hear, we just want to ask you about them, and we can have an informal, just a discussion. So it's not like a gotcha kind of meeting. We want to say, hey, what are we hearing? Share with you all, and just let us know what's going on. And probably because of the number of people in housing there, we're going to run into people. You got the Walmart period. I go in Walmart and see somebody there, and I said, how you doing? How much time you got? And so I know I'm going down here when it goes from there. So when you hear those comments and things, we're glad that we get an opportunity because we try to meet with all our boards and committees from time to time to talk about what's going on, how's it going, and those kind of things, and that's what we do. But you all provide a valuable service to us. There's no doubt about that. Very valuable. And we think it's imperative that we meet from time to time to deal with some things. And with that being said, all right, Peter?
Do you mind if I have a question?
Yes, sir.
Are you wrapping things up?
Mr. Boston, you got the floor.
I was just wanting to ask, because I know we all are aware of the affordable housing crisis, and right now council is actually in the process of looking at zoning reforms and things like that to help out. Are there any things that we can do more immediately that may help with the affordable housing crisis, or even RHA in helping them?
If there would be any way that, there's certain houses throughout the city that are boarded up, and, I understand that there's an owner attached to that home, but if there's any way that the city could work with us to either have them fix their units and rent them out, or if there's any way that we could work together to buy and refurbish those units, because there's a lot of them. I mean, there's a lot of stock of boarded up units in certain sections of the community. And I think that when we have families that are really in dire need of a place to live, that we should work together to turn these units over and make them a home for one of our residents. And I understand that that's easier to say than to do, but it's definitely something that we should look into.
It's actually become something easier to do now because the state legislature put in some laws last year. So, we're working on land banking, and we've now put a special, I don't know what we call David Collins, one of our lawyers. He is on the case of, like, whenever there's tax sales and stuff like that, they're able to say, we want these to be held back for the land bank, and the rest of them could go out for tax sale. So we're trying to be more aggressive in getting those vacant properties turned over, because we see them just like y'all do. They're great opportunities.
I was going to say, have you guys been working with the land bank at all, or you starting that relationship now?
We've worked with TAP, and it's just a matter of what is feasible for us to be able, or financially, we have to have the money to be able to do what we need to do. Since we're planning to build this development, most of our finances, if they're not tied up now, they will be tied up quite soon.
Which again, to David and Kira's point, one of the things we're going to be looking to the council for is support in making that reality. And repositioning is really crucial for us because of some of the reasons she addressed, the flexibility it gives us, the ability to access funds to keep units up to date and keep modernizing the facilities for residents. It's really important step for us in the future.
Yeah, I did love hearing about that. I know what repositioning is, and I've always wondered to myself, what do we do with these public housing, these large public housing estates? Over the years, we're going to have to maintain them, and how do we start to change that model so that we can get that public-private financing? It's really great.
Well, you mentioned the new development. I think everyone has a copy of this site plan, which is, it's really exciting in a way, because you think about the problems that the Housing Authority faces. One of them is, you think the numbers of people who are applying for assistance, 3,000, 4,000 people, and hey, we're going to build 86 units. I mean, that's that's great, but it's just it's a drop in the bucket in a way. And so, how do we think creatively about, is there a way to make it more dense? I mean, that gets to the zoning. I mean, even though it may not be traditional housing, is there something, because the need is so great, and I think it also touches on the homeless crisis that we're facing. All that's sort of interrelated, and so, how do we take an opportunity like this, for instance, and really make the most of it? And then I think some of the lessons we've learned at some of the other communities about how those places can be more easily policed or safe, from a design standpoint, and I think that kind of thing gets into, and, personally, I've even witnessed, in sort of traveling around some of the communities, for instance, remember at Lansdowne, you remember these kind of feelings that you have when you have them. You go to a place and you have something was going on that didn't feel right, and I kind of left and kind of went, but I think, this whole camera institution thing, to me, I feel like it's probably helped that, but David said, that doesn't necessarily keep people from doing something. It does, maybe give us a record. I was joking with him, we ought to put more dummy cameras up, but, they're expensive, those cameras, but, the other thing, and that is a big problem, the safety, and how people feel safe, and it occurred to me, is there a way to empower more residents with some sort of community watch so that and I'm not saying, okay, let's make a little group that's the local police force, but maybe a community watch so that people can, hey, we know these 4 or 5 people are involved in that, and we can go to them and say, well, did you see something or hear something? Because I think that's another big thing that we're experiencing is people don't want to work with the police.
No.
Even if they see something, there's either fear or some kind of other feeling that they don't want to be, part of it. And so I think that's a challenge for the housing authority because all the communities that we have, there are many people there, and if that's the prevalent feeling, how can we get past that? And I think, we can visit more and we can be more part of it, but the folks on the ground living there really, I think, have to have a bigger part in that. But, it's a daily challenge for folks, I know, but, I guess from a positive standpoint, I feel like this is a really great positive thing. We really don't give our, staff and leaders credit. You've got people here from the Housing Authority that are representative of like, dozens, scores of people back there that are doing the job every day. And David and the staff sitting behind us here, I mean, I was joking with a couple of them, you all sit up front here because they're really making it happen. And, I'm always impressed when I go to these meetings about, the job these folks do, how familiar they are with the sites and, just the leadership they provide. And, that kind of hits home when you go to the Christmas banquet. And, I think the first year or so I didn't go to that. And I went, whatever year the first time, and I was so impressed by it, and it felt like it kind of had a family feel to it. Mm-hmm. And I was so glad. I sort of felt proud to be a part of it, honestly. And it was really kind of a neat thing to be a part of. So the pandemic kind of hit it, but so anyway, I'll end on a positive note with that.
Well, thank you. Let me address something Kevin said, and then I'll come back. Are you done, Ms. Paulson?
I just have one more.
That's a loaded question to ask you.
Yeah.
That means, I know.
At this time.
But Ms. Kepler, I like your thoughts on that. I had over the years talked about dummy cameras because pretty much the cameras are there to, and as Mr. Monte said, it's not going to stop some people, but it sort of deters, or they know there's a camera there. Every little bit helps. I have an idea how we could incentivize people coming forth and telling you things, but I won't discuss that here. I'll talk to Chief Booth on that. But there's some incentives that you can do. It has to be worked carefully, but I agree with you in terms of the cameras and the things that it does, and that's the message I want to get out, is to let the people know we care. We care, and that priority with this council is to make sure people feel safe wherever they live. And we want to do that in the same way in those places. We want to make sure people are safe. So nothing's off the table. Anything you put on the table, dummy cameras. Sometimes in neighborhoods, I like to see police cars just parked there. Maybe they're not used, but park them in certain places. Every little bit helps. So think that and keep coming up with ideas. And
well, you talk about ideas. I like to talk about ideas. One of them that occurred to me is this ring I mean, even though they're not probably a formal, you know, you're not gonna get the police department project, okay, let's bring doorbells, but all those little things I think help, because the ones with the cameras especially, hey, you know, you can sit in your house and you can say, wait a minute, something's happening right out here, you know, and I mean, I'm sorry to interrupt, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but I think that's the kind of thing that, hey, can we start thinking about, because the technology's out there, it's not that expensive, but the cameras that we are putting in place, I mean, they cost a lot, I mean, so.
Yes, they do.
They're very pricey.
But everything's on the table. I'm noticing some other cities are doing a lot with cameras, and the residents want some, putting them on houses and those kinds of things there. So we're not that far removed from that. So everything, as I've always said, we put everything on the table, and let's see what can work, and I'm sure the chief will be talking to you about that.
I would like to just end on one note, because I know that all of you get phone calls too, and I forgot to mention this, and one of my staff members just brought it to me. Evictions. So during the pandemic, there was, as you're all aware, the eviction moratorium. And for some reason, that got translated to the rent moratorium. And it wasn't a rent moratorium, you were still supposed to pay your monthly charges. What occurred is that some individuals just didn't do it. Some individuals just didn't, they didn't want to enter into any type of repayment agreements, didn't want to call for the rent relief program, that we did receive a lot of money from the rent relief program, but they just didn't do it. So we visited these individuals again, because we have a lot of, a lot of accounts receivables that are very high due to this issue. And we've come to them now and said, listen, when we came to you the first time, you owed us $3,000. Now you owe us $8,000. Right? Well, where am I supposed to get this money? We came to you when you owed $3,000. Now you owe $8,000. I mean, do you have any way of, doing this? No, I don't. So, unfortunately, which is one of the hardest things that we do, is that these individuals are now facing eviction. Okay? And it's not what we like to do, but unfortunately, we have to do that. I mean, there's a minimum rent of $50, and when you owe $5,000, $6,000, that's a lot of months without paying rent, right? So I just wanted to let you know that we're in court multiple times during the week, and we're trying to gain possession of our units and fill those units with individuals from our wait list. But the flip side of that is that, unfortunately, there are some individuals that unfortunately will have to be evicted in order for us to be able to do that.
Yes, sir. I understand. All right, anybody, more questions?
I just have one comment, Mayor, if I could just ask about the new construction. I know this new complex will be new construction, and I know it's material, everything is so expensive. And we just celebrated a ribbon cutting for a hotel, that was just converted into that apartment complex, which I think it was creative. I like what they did. I don't know if you guys have thought about or even entertained doing something like that with some of the vacant hotels that we have. It might be a little bit cheaper and faster to get up and running. I just thought it was a great idea, and I just wanted to put that out there. But again, thank you all for coming out. And like the mayor said, these are conversations, and I'm here. You can call me anytime. I just appreciate you coming and clearing up some things for us. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Budimoni. And I'm going to turn it back over to Ms. Carney now to dismiss your meeting.
So do we have to officially have a motion to adjourn? Or
Yes.
Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn? Second. We have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Anybody opposed? We're adjourned.
Thank you. Good to see you. All right. And we'll be in recess for about 10 minutes. Thank you.